Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Cyber Weekly. The Cyber Weekly is a podcast which talks about cybersecurity and all matters related to cyber with me, the Precious Okelo, and Josephine, my co-host. I am glad you made it. Josephine, how was your festive season?
I was good, thanks, Dale. Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year.
I think all went well. Celebrated Christmas with family, and so the New Year with fireworks. So it was good. How about you?
Well, at least I feel fireworks are overrated. But yes, spending time with family is key during such periods. But not too much of a fireworks person anymore.
They're great to
Otherwise,
look at,
uh,
and I have a good view. So I had about more than 10 fireworks that I could see.
um, so you just compare and contrast.
Just enjoy. Just enjoy
Yeah,
the sight.
okay. So there are three major stories we'll have this week, and we'll be sharing the questions. So I'll begin with I think you will begin, then I'll follow along. Is that okay?
Yeah, please go ahead.
No, meaning you start with the questions, then I'll
Oh
continue.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Thank you. I can do that. So yes. So today we're going to look at Google Incognito tracking, um, pricing in cybersecurity, and changes to be made in 2023 with regard to cybersecurity, and also to look at how job platforms for cybersecurity. But firstly, they want to look at incognito mode. What is that about? Can you tell us about that?
This is a funny feature which came out some years back, and basically what it does is people who want to browse privately would use that. And what happens is whenever you browse with it, it won't keep the search history on your machine, hypothetically. But yes, because most of the times when you check on your when you're using incognito mode, uh, it's I think let me first also go into how you're able to access it. So in most browsers, it's like I think it's Control Shift N for incognito mode. You go to the left, the right side, those three horizontal dots. You click on it, and it will give you an option of browse privately or incognito. So many browsers have embraced it for quite some time, and it's very hard to find a browser nowadays that doesn't have incognito mode. So that's basically how we can access incognito mode. And what sells incognito mode is the element of the information not being stored on your machine. So when that Google is a company which thrives and makes most of their money through advertisement. So when they brought up the incognito mode, people expected that the fact that you're saying it's incognito, I don't expect my information to be tracked in any way. So that's where issues are coming in. Google having to find a way to make money, and also someone from the outside be like, you know what? You said it's private. You said it is not supposed to be shared or monitored it in a way. So why am I getting the same requests even if I'm incognito mode? So so um so the thing is yeah, that's the thing about it. So the fact that Google is a company which deals with marketing and that's where their main source of income is coming from, it was kind of controversial in a way that they are not keeping their end of, you know, ensuring that she am not tracking me when I'm using incognito mode. So yeah, that's basically it.
Yeah, and because of that, there's a class action lawsuit that was filed in June 2020, and which sought $5 billion in damages. I imagine that the settlement terms are not disclosed, but I think
Yeah,
Google agreed to settle that lawsuit.
yeah, that information has not been disclosed, but definitely if a company like Google, they will try as much as possible to make sure that information like that is key. Like they have to, you know, with a large organization like Google, they have to look at all the dynamics related to having a particular service available. And they have to also look at how do you ensure that you maintain visibility at the same time maintain competitive advantage. So those are all things they look at when they come to such situations. And I feel um, when you're using a service like incognito mode, I think people think it's a superpower. It's like using maybe like a Tor browser that you you find that you don't expect to be tracked or something like that. But the truth being is, as long as you are on your same network and you're not using like any sort of private browser, I mean a VPN or a Tor browser combined, it's very hard for you to start saying that, you know what, I am not being tracked by any organization because our IP address can still be linked to us. And the fact that you have been using that same IP address over and over, meaning that it's still connected to you. The only benefit of it being is if, like, let's say you're on a club, let's say you go to an internet cafe or something like that, and you want to browse something, that would be more beneficial in that way that you're not worried that when you go off the machine or close the browser, you're not worried that your information is still stored on that machine. So that's the biggest benefit I would say for incognito.
Yeah, I think ultimately, though, if and obviously that's why Google lost out on this lawsuit. If you do say it's incognito, then it really should be incognito. So you are essentially advising us that we should have some confidence in using it. Is that right?
Yes, you should have confidence in using it, but you have to not think of it like a silver bullet for everything. That's my caution when it comes to that.
Okay. Okay. So
So
that's all I had on the Google on the incognito mode.
okay, now I think we'll go to the next, which is uh, choosing the price tag for the intangible assets is quite usually difficult for many, and I
Mm.
would like you to shed a light on it because from software to yeah, basically with software especially, you have a program, you want to sell it, and you want to make sure you keep some money on you definitely, And also you have to make sure that employees are paid and all that. Well, those key things you usually consider when you're making such arrangements. And how do you usually, manage the costs when it comes to such things?
Okay, so you're asking how to price the intangible assets? How I would
Yeah,
price it?
yes, exactly.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, you're right that it's not easy to price intangible assets. Of course, unlike uh, tangible assets, which are physical, it's easier to. It's not easy because I mean, a physical asset, you know what it is, looks, you can material costs and things like that. But intangibles are a bit abstract, and sometimes it's like it's hard to hold it, for instance, and the how you value it is quite subjective. But there's some factors that you can consider. I think it depends on the type of asset that you're looking at. Like is it what is it that you're trying to price? Because obviously, if it is intellectual property, it's a patent or whatever. It could be goodwill, it could be your brand, it could be your customer relationships. That will have to help. That will determine how you price it. And then if that intangible asset is for instance something that gives you a competitive advantage over others, then perhaps it can have a higher value, and you need to also look at the future benefits. I think um, how you value it. I think depends, as I said, on the asset, and then it also depends on other factors like what does the market say? So how does this asset compare to other assets that have been sold or they've been traded? So you need to look at how can I see something that's comparable as an asset and then value it accordingly. And then what does that asset generate for you in terms of income or the future? What is the future cost? I mean, the future cash flows that the asset will generate. And then you can also look at what is the cost of replacing the asset, because then that can tell you what the value is. And I think really it's a difficult question to ask because um, it's very subjective, but I would say that is how you would look at it. And of course, different companies price their intangible assets differently. And there's a risk and uncertainties around it, because if for instance you're looking at your brand and then your brand suddenly gets hit by a reputational issue, then it could easily lose the value of that asset. um, and then of course there are regulatory restrictions, because there are some assets that are not considered, can be that should not be given a value. But I think, yeah, it's hard to answer this question. But I think some of those factors: what is the type of the asset? What does the market? How does the market see it? I think that can help in terms of how you can put a price on an intangible asset.
Oh, thank you for that. Now, I want to now look at it in an angle of someone who's beginning or in the industry. And if you notice that our cybersecurity industry is more learning a lot from the IT industry, because we are playing catch up, to one would say. So,
Yeah.
but still, you find that there are very few people in the industry. So our comparison should be more IT related, because that's the area which is similar to us. So when you look at it in the IT perspective, we have people who, let's say, you're in the industry and you want to, break through, and there are issues concerning um, salaries, and how do you manage asking for, salary bump, or yeah, joining, and maybe you might require to, you know, not have a very high exorbitant salary, which will become a problem for servants. So, how do you usually manage such situations? Because I'm guessing the fact that you've worked for this number of companies and organizations definitely have had those issues here and there. And yes, I would like to know how you would manage them.
I think it's hard to I look at it from two aspects. I think the first one is um, maybe at the time that you're joining a company, how the question I would probably ask is how do you set yourself, how do you do your salary negotiations? I think that's one aspect. And then the second aspect is if you're selling your services, how do you price them? I think that those are the two questions I'd ask if that I'd answer if that's okay.
That's okay. That's okay.
Yeah. So I think the first one, it is a lot harder to price because a lot of companies already have a price that they're willing that they have a that they can cap a position at. So sometimes if you're entering a position, you're new to the market, it's very difficult. You've just graduated, for instance, it's very difficult to start demanding for a huge salary. What's important is to understand what value you bring, but also to understand what the market is offering. So that when you go into a salary negotiation, you're not asking something that is outside of the market. So the advice generally is that you start perhaps at the top of the market. And sometimes they do ask for sometimes you have the option of negotiating your salary. Sometimes you don't because when you apply for a job, it often says it's 1 million a month or whatever, and that is it, right? Um,
Mm.
then it doesn't leave you much room for negotiation. But of course, if you're coming from if you have some experience and perhaps you can add more value to that role, you could potentially start by asking for a little bit more and say based on my experience in this industry or based on my qualifications, I think this is what I deserve. It's important that you start higher than things because you're always going to negotiate downwards. But so for when you're coming into a role, established company, perhaps less room for negotiation. But for now, if you're a consult, you have your own company and you're starting out and you want to set a value for your services. It's a bit trickier, but obviously you need to be doing a lot more in terms of your understanding what your value is because it's your company now. You have to look at what your costs are. What are your overhead costs? What is your time and expertise? How do you value your time and expertise? And then what are you delivering in terms of value? Also, you need to obviously research the market, look at what the rates of people who are doing the similar thing that you're doing are is and consider the size and budget of your clients. Not every client is going to be able to pay you what you want. Some clients are bigger, others small. So small businesses obviously have much more sensitivity to pricing than the larger ones. And look at all the rates, look at job boards, what consulting rates are. And then if you're starting out, obviously there is competition. So you need to look at different pricing modules that can perhaps make it easier for the company to retain you. Perhaps give a project based on a project. Perhaps look at retainer agreements. Um, Look at our hourly rates, but you need to be definitely willing to be flexible
Yes.
because you want the business. Obviously,
You,
the initial price, yes.
you've thrown so many terms. Could you break them down?
Okay, then let me finish this, and then we can discuss those. So if you obviously your initial price is normally what you start with, but you need to be prepared to negotiate. That's why sometimes it's better to start a little bit higher, and then negotiate a little bit to really where you want. But look at how you can attract the client. Perhaps give discounts, you get a new client and all that. But it's definitely important that you understand the value that you're bringing, but that you're willing to be able to negotiate and to be flexible. Understand what the market is also charging. Yeah.
Okay. So there are those terms you throw, especially for the choosing a salary and all that. Could you please elaborate them more?
Which terms are those? The
IR something raises and something like that.
Did I talk about IR?
Hmm, something like that. I failed to pick it up.
I hope I don't know. I didn't. I thought I didn't. Did I talk about IR? Okay. Maybe I don't know if I talked about the value proposition, or is that something that you, because I'm not really sure which term you're asking me to
You were
explain.
talking about the terms which are involved, like key things which you should look out for, especially when it comes to deciding a salary and the different boards and all that. So you highlighted some when I told you that, could you elaborate more on those terms which you have mentioned? And you're like, I mean, let me finish.
Yeah, but I mean, if you don't tell me what the term is, it's difficult for me to remember.
Uh,
Because I did talk about value proposition, um, hourly rates, how you can do your different pricing models. But I can't really pinpoint which term it is exactly that you want me to explain. Perhaps we can review this and talk about that later.
okay. Now, when it comes to, okay, let's start with maybe value proposition. What's it all about?
Value proposition is what value you're bringing. You know, if you're looking at your value, you need to be able to, the client, for instance, needs to be able to understand what what it is that you're solving for them. What problem are you solving for them? I think, and how much do you improve their how much do they benefit? How much do you improve their bottom line or save them time? So if you're not able to kind of quantify that, then it's difficult to justify your pricing. Yeah, because you can say, "Oh, I'm a consultant. I'm at 10,000. I charge 5,000 a month." But what is the benefit of that 5,000 to the client? If you cannot articulate that in terms of the value that you're bringing and the what and to justify that, then it will be difficult for the clients to retain you. So that's the value proposition.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when it comes to management, I know you always have budgets which come from the technical team, and what are those things which you usually seek out? And I know when you're transitioning from the education perspective to actually, doing the stuff, you have to come up with those figures, and sometimes it's usually challenging, especially if you're getting started. And they're telling you, okay, there is this project we need, and we need you to come up with a budget. So how do you usually go about with that
I
if
think
you
with
have
the
a
project,
technical
yeah.
background? Mm.
Okay, so I'm assuming I'm being presented with a budget. Is that what you're saying? You're
Yeah,
presenting a budget
yeah,
and
yeah,
I want to know whether it makes sense.
yeah,
Yeah. Okay, so I
yeah,
think looking at it, so I'm assuming this is a budget for a project.
yeah.
Yes. Okay. So I think the first thing is what is the project really aligning with the business, with my business objectives? Because there are many projects, right? They can have many projects, but I think it's important that the project is talking to the objectives of the business. Yeah, and what the business is trying to achieve. Yeah. So then looking at what does the budget really does the budget can the budget really support the objectives of the project, and will it be able to deliver what is expected? So we need to make sure that the budget, being the resource, is sufficient to support the project objectives. But obviously the project has to make sense to the business. Um, and other things I'd look at is it a really clear and concise budget? I think you need to look at the costs and see if they make sense and if they are realistic. Um, is it have there has enough work been done that it makes sense. Some of the figures make sense. You don't want anything vague or anything like that, because then it means not enough work has been done in preparing for the project. Does the one of the in technology especially, one of the things that budgets often miss is the maintenance cost, because the total cost of ownership of something. So if you're, for instance, purchasing software, often you would see a budget where it's just the cost of the software, but sometimes there's no training, there's no the maintenance cost of it, because sometimes software, for instance, requires an annual maintenance fee or things like that, or an initial support cost. Or so I think make sure that it's a complete budget, making sure that the budget is complete in terms of the cost, because if you approve a cost which is under planned, then you'll definitely have a budget overrun because some of the costs had not been anticipated. And it needs to be a budget where you've looked at things that can go wrong. What is contingency in the budget? If you're just looking at exact cost of things, but you've not planned for some costs for contingencies, maybe something that might not be might not have been foreseen, then you could potentially have a budget overrun. Other things in terms of the projects, I think I would say, does this project really deliver what we want? Is it feasible? Is it being really realistic? Is it achievable within the project timeline that is there in the plan? Are there some unrealistic assumptions? What are the risks that have been highlighted, and what are the plans to mitigate those? Um, and does everybody, the stakeholders, are the stakeholders really sold on in this project? Because if stakeholders who are going to be part of the project and don't know about the project, have not been involved in the planning for it, then it's unlikely that the project will be successful. So I think those are the things I would look out for.
So as we wind down, I would like to know what are the key things you would want to see in the change in the cybersecurity space this year?
That's an interesting question. I think in the cyberspace, I think I have a long wish list. But some of the top ones I think are around data privacy, obviously. I think it's important that there's stronger laws are there to protect data, especially when it regards personal information. I know we've been talking, for instance, about Google Incognito, and the fact that Google had to settle a lawsuit. I think it's important that there are data protection laws are better implemented, and that we're looking at protecting personal data. Perhaps more training and awareness around the use of data, because I think there is also a lot of online harassment and discrimination, especially of female people. So I think it's important that that is continues to happen. And I talked about promoting digital literacy and inclusion and education. I think that's important. I think there's too much in terms of misinformation and disinformation on things. So perhaps more responsibility around that. Um, Perhaps something about ethical AI and algorithms. I think those are kind of the things. But there's a long list of things that I'd like to see, and hopefully that's something that will be in the new year will happen. Will happen even more. I know it's been happening, but hopefully it's something that will continue to happen.
Okay. So now when it comes to application for jobs, we have shared some links to, some information of different areas where someone can actually go and access these different careers. One of them being the one of Google, where you can go to careers.google.com, where you'll be able to register, and there usually takes some time. Definitely, it's that one you'll have to wait and yeah, just fill in the information, add your CVs, everything, and yeah, wait for it. Then the cybersecurity careers option, if you're a cybersecurity member, you can simply use that portal to apply for jobs. Then cyber SN, it's more like ZipRecruit and LinkedIn jobs. So some of them would require you to redirect to the website itself and you apply from there. So it's more of something like that. Then LinkedIn jobs, if you use LinkedIn, there's that option of jobs. So you can choose to actually opt into that. Then Dice is also a good one. So you just basically all of them require you placing your profile there. Then yes, waiting for apply to several of them, and you get to also look through what they require, the requirements are, and I believe that would be beneficial. Josephine, do you have anything to say about that?
No, I think it's those are very good good resources. Personally, I think LinkedIn has been for me a very good resource. I think I've got a lot of contacts, especially job related through LinkedIn. But I think what's important with LinkedIn is to make sure that you have an up-to-date profile that is, that talks to the job areas that you're looking at. That's been my experience. I don't know if you can talk a little bit about your experience of any of these sites, if you have, especially cybersecurity.
Well, for LinkedIn, for cybersecurity, it's basically they have a portal. It's not so different from the one of LinkedIn. So you just go, you already set up your profile. By your profile, meaning your name, your CV. So when you're submitting, you just apply through that. Use that same information to apply to several jobs. So yeah, that's basically it. If there's any other information maybe which they would want, you can also add that, but that's how they usually work.
Yeah. But I do think that the good thing is the demand for jobs is not just especially cybersecurity is those skills are really required globally. So I think those are very good resources to have. But otherwise, yeah, nothing to thingy, nothing further on that.
Yeah, I guess that's it for this week. I look forward to seeing you in the next one.
Yeah, thank you so much, Theo. Have a good day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.